the roller coaster season. What's it been like covering this team on a daily basis?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been even more of a roller coaster than it usually has been. I mean, just the Ilya Samsonov arc has been its own roller coaster. Yeah, I mean, just coming off the summer too, where you have the change at general manager, which felt so seismic at the time, and then you come in with most of the core back in check, and one day you're doing a story about Austin Matthews being on pace for 70 goals. The next day you're like, are they in the fight for their playoff lives? So it's been, it's been a roller coaster, even more so it feels like than ever before covering this Maple Leafs team.
Yeah, I can imagine. We go up and down with our thoughts on the team. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is what we always say. And from your perspective, like we're on the outside looking in all the time, and you're gonna have one vibe with that. When you also have that with reporting on them, but you're in the room and you're around the guys. What are the differences you see from people on the outside and those actual people on the inside?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's been moments of tension, certainly. You lose 4 games in a row with a team with the expectations of the Leafs. There's going to be that undercurrent beneath the surface, and we've had Sheldon Keefe talk about how he doesn't know who he can trust at certain times late in games. I mean, halfway through the year. Yeah, so there's been that tension, of course, underneath it. But I've also seen in this era that they tend to find a way. They don't have long winning streaks per se, but they don't have a lot of long skids. They know how to pull themselves out of it at the right time, and they go into the All-Star break. Which, I mean, can you imagine what we'd be talking about right now if they hadn't won these last 3 games going into the All-Star break and kind of gotten things on track? So, listen, there's been the ups and downs. And my sense of a lot of the guys is they kind of have been just kind of focused and let's get going here and not too worried about things.
One guy's been really focused, boys. Austin Matthews, 40 goals in 46 games. We often talk about it. We probably take this guy for granted in this market, but what's it been like covering Austin Matthews from day one to where he's at now, where he scores pretty much every game?
It's very tough. It's very tough because, as you said, uh, you almost take it for granted, and then you look at the stats, and you're like, "This is just the greatest Maple Leaf I've ever seen." Certainly, he's gonna pass Matt Sundin for the franchise goals record probably next season. I was like looking it up, like I was looking at his pace. I'm like 70 goals. I'm like, when's this? Like I don't know. Like Ovi had 65 that one year, and we were talking about how it'd be cool if he beat him, and I'm like 70 goals. Hasn't happened since Solane and Mogilny in 92, 93. And how many guys have done it? 8. I mean, and he's on pace for it. And we're past the halfway point, and he's missed a game. It's tough. It's tough because of how amazing he is. It's fun because it feels like he does something crazy. That game in Calgary, to me, if you're starting the Hart Trophy kind of campaign for him, that's the game. They're down 2-0. They're on a skid. It's feeling like it's going off the rails, and he's like, "I'm just going to take over this game, score a hat trick, and we're going to win it. It's going to be okay." So it's tough because he doesn't love talking about himself, like a lot of hockey players. He doesn't like. I think he doesn't like to give away stuff too, right? I remember he switched to black tape for one shift or 2 shifts, and he was like not biting on what he was doing there. Like it was unclear what he was doing there. So it's tough because you're like, this is the greatest guy I've ever covered. How do I tell this story, put it in context, and try and push it forward and do something different? And so it's a challenge, but boy, it's a privilege to cover this story.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty impressive. I think back in like those 92 3 days, I think it was easier to score, man. You look at the systems these teams are playing, the athleticism, the speed, the space they take away, the goaltenders. Like, I don't know how this guy's doing it. It is phenomenal. But I wanted to ask, the trade deadline's coming up. This team's still kind of a yo-yo. What do you think they're going to do, and how do you think they're going to do it? Are they going to make a push, or do they do it passively, or do they kind of, you know, lock their fingers and hope, or what do you think their plan is going into the trade deadline, which is creeping up here?
I think you have to buy. I mean, I think you have to go for it as much as you can. Maybe not push all the chips in, but Austin Matthews is on pace for 70 goals. you, you got these guys in their prime here. William Nylander's having a career year. You pushed all the chips in with him. Marner's in his prime, and I think he can get better in the second half, and he's still having a pretty good year. and Tavares is 33, and you got to try and milk everything you can out of him. So the defense is where they focused. That's what Trey Living was talking about in the summer. He was like, I feel like I want to improve the defense even more after signing, Klingberg, and he made some smaller signings. He's like, I still want to reshape this. So that's where you're focused on, right? TJ Brody's having a tougher year than we've seen, and you got to find the right mix. It's not going to be easy. That's the thing, and you don't have as many chips to play with because of all the buying they've done over the years. But I think you have to find a way to improve this roster, because that's the whole Shannon plan is built on this, is you're taking as many cracks with these guys. And maybe this is the way it happens. Maybe they're a wild card team and they're on the Metro side and they don't have the pressure of being they've never been a lower seed in the Sheldon Keefe era. Maybe that helps them. Maybe they find a path. Maybe this is the year that Matthews just isn't denied in a series and just goes off. So I think you have to try and buy. I'm not saying you go do what you did with Kyle Dubas last year, where it felt like they were all in and he was on an expiring contract himself. But you got to believe that they're going to try and do something specifically with the defense.
So, Masters, the big thing with us that we've talked about, I think having hope is just a flawed mentality. Like you can't be the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can't pay these guys all this money and hope that something's going to magically change in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like that's where I think the concern is with this franchise, this organization, the whole Shannon plan. It's like all they're doing is hoping that, hey, we get in and we could be the Florida Panthers. I just think that's flawed. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, it doesn't look great now. It's certainly you don't feel great about it with the way the first half played, but then you look at their talent, and then I watch some other teams and I see the teams below them, and I was like thinking, we have this time off, and you're wondering, could they conceivably miss the playoffs? And you just look at the teams below them, and they just, none of them seem like they have it in them, and certainly the Leafs with the high end talent. So yes, it doesn't look great now, but it doesn't look great until it works. And they need to make changes. They need to make the roster better for sure. But you can squint and see a scenario where Matthews goes to his heart level, finds a way to unlock that next level, and Marner as well, right? Those guys have been the ones. We feel like Nylander has found a way to raise his level at times in the playoffs, and you got to believe you're pretty far down the path with these guys. You got to believe that if you can give them another chance, they're going to find that next level when it matters most. So I can understand that there's some trepidation right now, but it's hard to get these guys. And I don't know. It's tricky. Like, I don't have the answer. I'm not sure, anyone does, but it's hard to get these guys. You've got them in their primes, and you go for it, and you hope, and you keep trying to push and prod around the fringes. That's kind of the whole era, right? And it's hard. Like, I don't know what the path is, right? Like, they've tried, unless you're going to make a change to the core, which I heard you guys were chatting a bit about coming into this. It's hard to know what the path is beyond just giving these guys another crack.
Yeah, it's tough. What goaltending? A lot of noise was made about that when Samsonov's struggling. Woll goes down. He's been out for a while. With the resurgence of Sammy, his numbers in 4 games are phenomenal. I mean, all signs point to he has found something. He's back on track. They get Woll back. What's your thought on the goaltending situation, especially, obviously not sure what Woll's going to be like coming back, but do you think with Samsonov's resurgence, they've kind of, settled down and figured out this is what we're going with?
You want options in net because you want someone to get hot. And now you've got options, right? We're talking about Matthews scoring 70. I'm not sure I've ever covered a story like Samsonov's first half here, where it's gone so poorly and you're wondering if this guy's ever going to play again. And it felt like there was a real conversation about whether he should even get that start against Detroit on the back-to-back, or they should get Dennis Hill to be in there. And then, he gets it, and they lose, and then they don't, he doesn't play again to that back-to-back in Seattle, and he takes a step there, and then he sweeps Winnipeg and plays absolutely out of his mind at home in that Wednesday game, and has the fans chanting his name, and gets to keep the belt, which I don't think anyone's ever kept the belt 2 games in a row. But Austin Matthews says, no, you are keeping that, my friend. And I don't it's unclear what happened. Like, he left the team for, a week, 10 days. When they went to California, he stayed back and he did some work one-on-one. And then apparently had a heart-to-heart with his father and basically told him to wake up and he's got to fight for this. And he's this close to losing his hockey life. And that's the way he described it. And whatever happened, looked in the mirror or what, someone unlocked it, but he looks like himself again. He looks like the guy, cause I was thinking back, I was thinking of Game 6 in Tampa. And there's a lot of talk, big picture talk after that game. And the last question of Keith's presser was, I asked him, what will you remember about this game? And he said Samsonov and the way he played. It was a 2-1 game, and he outdueled Vasilevsky. So if they can have him as an option, I'm not ready, and he's not ready, to credit to him to say he's all the way back. But to have him as an option is a very good development, because now if you're the Leafs, you're like, okay, Wool's coming back. We don't have to rush that. Maybe Jones has shown that he's an option, and now Samsonov, if he can get back, you want options in that, because you want to find someone who's hot, and they got another option there.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like, somebody will ask me who's been the good Leafs goalie. I'm like, well, ask me which week it is, right? Because it's 1 week it's Wall, 1 week it's Jones, 1 week it's Samsonov. You just never know in this market. And I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to the draft on Thursday. The inevitability of Austin Matthews having to pick, like Team Matthews having to pick between Marner and Nylander. You're smiling because it's going to go down, man, and somebody's going to be pissed off about this, and it ain't going to be Nylander. I'll tell you this, man. I'm curious to see who they pick.
Maybe they just don't. Maybe they just don't pick their teammates. Maybe they just say that's the way to sidestep and be like, that's the fun part. Like, we want to see different guys and we want to go up against them because it's the only way for bragging rights. And that to me is a path that they could take to avoid that scenario where they have to pick one of those two guys. Yeah, and it would be fun. It would be fun. It will add to the intrigue of the night. I think it's great that they're doing this. Yeah,
you get to play with other superstars you never get to play with. Why wouldn't you want to test that out and see what's fun and see who you're clicking with and see what other guys do out there? I think it's a no-brainer to not.
I love that when guys like Dylan Larkin are playing with Mitch Marner, this is the funnest. This is the greatest thing. That's the cool thing to see. Though that's what you want to see, right? This is what makes the All-Star. You get to see these guys interacting in a different setting, and I see these four guys interact with the Leafs in the dressing room and on the practice ice all the time. Let's see them go head to head. Let's see what happens in that environment. I think the fans would like it too. Gives you another stake. What if Team Matthews loses in that first game? So I think it's a smart play to just say, you know what, you guys go play on another team. Maybe Marner and Nylander will land on different teams too. Maybe they'll be Leafs on 3 of the 4 different teams. It'd be interesting.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.